I just like, I mean, I don't know what we're gonna do because
Well, I gotta check the air.
I don't want it to affect.
Same as me.
And I take off.
I don't know, I don't want it to like get the buds going and then influence Pawling and hurt
I thought
them.
I walked,
I mean, it's
I'm
dry.
in shape,
It's
I run
just
10
the
pounds.
overall hydrogeologic system.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So hopefully it's on a continuation of what we had
What
last
time did you
year.
go, in the morning?
How about 10:30?
Okay. Oh, no.
My friend Peter lives across from you and
Mhm.
he's looks like everybody Bob Hill is having a meeting at the bridge
What?
right now. He still works for EC.
Oh,
Peter
yeah.
House, someone looks straight across the lane.
Good evening.
Hey Mayor, how are you? Good evening, how are you?
Oh, boy.
Oh, I moved around.
No worries, sir.
Oh, that was great last night, you're like, maybe it doesn't stare out open.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, okay.
We're trying to get the Dugan Lane Bridge project
Yeah,
going.
my flag day.
What's the,
Where's that?
Custom Tree, North Quaker and Reservoir.
The rear.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
We gotta-
that's been cut off for years.
Years, 2014 maybe?
Put your eye on the bridge?
Lot better, so
We got a grant for it.
Yeah, right.
You carry our John? We had a grant for it.
How you doing?
To buy an extender, one that kind of has an extender bendy thingy, right?
You don't have the room to get through.
Get it in?
Oh, it's just
Down to the-
Yeah, it looks like a bridge, but they call it flat, it's called a bridge.
I get it.
But
you know,
part of it,
I'm
final
fine.
approval.
It's not like, yeah, you gotta plan
Not like
it.
the front nose.
How come the bridge is so old?
No, it should be good.
It was built.
That might be it.
I feel a little bit older.
I was just kidding.
So when you use the permit easement granted for maintenance and checks.
That changed for a couple of days.
Maybe we should take
You have the
it.
authority to get it.
We can, but like, then it ties it back up again. I'm like, it's been 5 years playing this, you know, and I'm like, design, it's gonna affect that.
They want a dead end road.
You are?
Yeah, I know. 100%.
Is it on?
I'm like, amphibians,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? It's not gonna affect them. Has it affected them in the last, 8 years it's been closed?
They want a dead end road.
But we're pushing it.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Hi, Jim.
Good evening, how are you? What a nice day today.
Yes.
Spoiled.
Tomorrow again.
It's a little too hot for my.
It is too hot.
I couldn't help it.
I never complain about the heat, cause I do not like the cold at all, so,
Really?
like, not even a little bit. I'm not a
I
cold weather
love the
person.
heat. I'm sure Mr. Floridian here is enjoying it.
This is like home.
Yeah.
I brought it, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Just so I wouldn't freeze my butt off.
You only had to bring a light jacket around with you today, right?
Exactly. Or a heater, you know, I gotta walk around with this backpack heater, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, I like your shirt.
That's
Oh,
pretty much
yes,
the,
yes. I guess we didn't get the memo.
Yeah, but you just get a twofer.
Yeah, it was a twofer.
Yeah, they had 2 colors left. He got one of them and I got the other. Hey, Dave.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Good.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello.
James? Good evening, Dave, how are you?
Well, the table's set up differently too.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it should be longer on this side.
yeah, right. Gotcha. Yeah.
A few other people at the end came in early this week. Yes, busy. Yeah.
Is this in it? All right, welcome to the April 13th Pawling Joint Sewer Commission meeting. If you could join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a motion to approve the March 9th minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Get a motion to approve the March treasurer's report as presented.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Get a motion to approve the March vouchers report as presented.
So moved.
And I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Come on, James. All right, can I get a motion to transfer $70,363.59 from the O&M account ending in 0030 to checking account ending in 0190 to pay the March 2023 vouchers?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion to transfer $5,411.50 from the capital account ending in 0000 to checking account ending in 0190 to pay Labella vouchers for I&I study and West Main Street Pump Station upgrade?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion to pay Labella vouchers in the amount of $5,210 from the wastewater treatment plant project number 2, account ending in 0500 for septic receiving station project?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. At this point, we need to do appointments, so I would like a motion to make Dave the temporary chair for the appointment of the new chair.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do I have a motion to appoint a new chair?
Dave's the,
Just
Temporary.
temporary, pro tem, just for this one.
oh, for this meeting?
One act.
No,
not even
just for this
meeting.
one action.
Oh, okay,
Just
so
one
I was gonna ask
action,
the
because
timeline.
there's technically
No,
not a chair,
just-
and
I understand.
so Lori's
I'm also-
acting
I
chair,
can't.
and she's not able to.
I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm an eye for that as well.
Yeah. So can I have a motion to appoint a new chair?
I'll make a motion to appoint Mayor Lori Taylor to the chair.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm a nay.
All right, so now is it back?
And now it's back to you to,
Okay. So I would like to make the motion to appoint James as the vice chair.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Okay. We have reference number 26.23, customer 10308 has requested an adjustment on the March 15th sewer bill in the amount of $1,162.18. Customer states their hose bib burst while they were out of town.
So-
Discussion?
This is actually water that was not placed into the sewer, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, this is outside, right, we spoke with one outside space?
Yeah, if it was the bib, it just means it went on the ground and not into the sewer system.
Sure. I'll make the motion to waive that.
I'll second that as well.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now I gotta get out of the way. We have Dan Stone, Sewer Commission's engineer, to give a presentation on the proposed new sewer rates.
Since this is being broadcast, should I talk near a mic like this? or what is
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, if you would, yeah.
So also the mic overhead might also pick you up, but
Where is it?
These pick up pretty good, Dan, so if you, I think if you just point it towards you, it'll probably work pretty well.
Okay.
These are pretty good mics.
Let's try that. This will take a second to power up. I'm gonna try to split myself in two in this elongated room. The commissioners have. Thank you. Let this warm up. The commissioners have seen,
You usually gotta warm.
Yes!
Yeah, they gotta warm the second, those projectors.
It's like pins and needles.
Right, a moment of tension.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
So I'm gonna talk from a slideshow and make a small apology here at the beginning. This isn't as clear as I hoped it would be. It's my understanding that this presentation will be placed on the website afterwards where everybody can be able to see the details and pick into granularity of it to the extent that you need to. Before I get into this, just a couple of observations. I listened to the town board meeting last night to some extent, and maybe some of my comments before the presentation may clarify some of that which I heard, or at least my brain heard. It may not be what you said. Pawling Joint Sewer Commission, this body, operates under an intermunicipal agreement that the village and the town created in 1983. It was a very early on co-municipality project. You know, this is something that they did way before it became at least a state idea that municipalities should cooperate. This is a very early on cooperative agreement. Pawling Joint Sewer Commission follows the IMA. That's its guiding chapter, and it's the contract that the town and the village signed together to create this body. We have to follow the rules. The IMA is like any other contract. It can be modified from time to time. But the way the commission does business is under the IMA as it exists today. I know there was some discussion last night about the procedure for the village board. It expressed its desire to appoint a seventh member of the commission. There's a procedure that both entities have to agree to make that happen. Ultimately, the IMA will be modified by agreement. The village board said we want to do it, the commission said we want to do it, your board needs to say we want to do it too. At that point, the IMA would be modified and reviewed by both government entities and ultimately approved by the Pawling Joint Sewer Commission. But it's not just you can do it by appointment or resolution or anything else. We have to follow the IMA. The other surprising thing last night was how surprised everybody was with respect to what I'm going to present tonight and what Pawling Joint Sewer Commission is endeavoring to do here with respect to rates. I personally started working on this in 2021. The commission engaged Municipal Solutions in March of 2022 to assist with this. Municipal Solutions is a private entity in Western New York State that specializes in municipal financing. And we've worked hard. I made the first presentation to this group in the public in June of 2022, almost 10 months ago, I guess. I made a follow-up presentation similar to this in January, and yet I know a lot of the town board members seem to think that this was being sprung on them by surprise. I think it's good when you get the second board member, so at least you have 2 or 4 years, 2 sets of years at the table to bring things back to you. So at least we're operating from the same common agreed factual baseline. And then we can pontificate. But I don't think the factual baseline is well understood on both sides. And it's frustrating. The presentation I'm going to show tonight is modeled exactly after the presentation that I provided last June, but I've updated the budget slides because they need to be in this pretty high inflation period. And I've provided within the document a copy of the proposed rate structure that Municipal Solutions and Rubella is recommending to the commission, and we believe it's a fair, equitable way to go forward. So with that, I'll start the presentation. I don't mind taking questions as it goes, so if that's acceptable to the chair, then, you know, if somebody wants to say, what do you mean by this? Let's try to iron it out as we go.
Can I just say something quickly?
Sure.
So new tonight is the fact that this is being live streamed and will live on our website. So this presentation will be there for anybody that, you know, wants to look at it in the future as well as being this presentation being put on the website itself so that you could print it, download it, print it out. But also moving forward from tonight, all of the meetings will be now live streamed on YouTube, so.
Excellent. Thank you.
Again, I'm sorry about the clarity of this, even from my old eyes. It's a little unclear. But I want to talk tonight about finances and how Pawling Joint keeps finances separate from other accounts. It follows the IMA. We'll talk briefly about that. It sets budgets every year. The budgets are set, published, established, talked about, and then that's what we follow. In the presentation, I have numbers that show recent budgets, and I have projections for the next couple of years. Projections in this economy are challenging, but at least 2023 is accurate. A concept, we're talking about concepts of who benefits and who pays. There's a concept in New York State government that, you know, those who benefit have to pay, and if you don't benefit, you should not pay. And we'll talk about that. We'll look and compare the current wastewater rate structure with a proposed new rate structure, and then finally we'll talk about a potential implementation schedule, provided both the village and the town and Pawling Joint all do in order the things that are needed to be done to get there. A fundamental here of financing for Pawling Joint Street Commission is the money has to be kept separate. Even though the village treasurer is responsible for the money, for keeping track of it and moving money around so Christine can pay bills, it has to be a totally separate and completely different account from any other monies here in the village. The way that the commission was set up, the village of Pawling is actually responsible for payment of bonds. The commission has no bonding authority on its own, and when the commission was set up, it would be the general obligation of the village of Pawling to secure the bonds that would be needed for any major improvements. The village treasurer has to pay those, whatever the debt service is every year. And Pawling Joint must turn over enough money to the village treasurer so that those debts can be paid, and turn over enough money to pay other bills. So separate pots, very carefully monitored and controlled. Pawling Joint Sewer Commission creates a budget every year, and it talks about, I don't know, there's probably 30 line items in the budget that's available for people to see. It's contract labor, it's consultants like me, it's debt service, keep the lights on with electricity and all of that. So
Commissioner's fees.
Steve, let me talk. I mean, I don't mind you asking questions, but
Just want to make
let's
sure you
keep.
include that. Thank you.
So the budget is presented. Under the intermunicipal agreement, it has to be divided into two components before bills are made. A component associated with the town users and a separate component associated with the village users, both from a capital repayment standpoint and an O&M standpoint. And then the rate equations that are applied, apply the one pot of money to the town users and another pot of money to the village users. Mathematically, it doesn't make a lot of difference because that distribution, that initial distribution, is done on the 4 quarters of flow prior to the budget year. So we look back and we say the town is 40% and the village is 60%, multiply 40% times the capital part and the operating part, and that makes the pro rata share. But that follows the IMA. As you're reviewing the IMA, if you treated everybody as equal users and got rid of that clause, if it's legal under New York State, it would make everybody's life easier. So we set rates to generate enough money to keep the lights on, to pay the bills, and to pay the debt service. But we're not supposed to set rates that bring more revenue significantly than we need. However, we have a fund that if in any given budget year we have a little bit more money at the end of the year, it goes into a fund dedicated to Pawling Joint Sewer Commission. If there's a little bit less, we pull money out of that fund to make the budgets work. But there's segregated money, the budgets are, that budget is sacred in that regard. This is one of the slides that I updated, and if you go back and look at the January presentation or the June presentation, you will see changes here. The 23 numbers are actual numbers. I didn't go back with Christine to look at old budgets to update the old, because that horse is out of the barn. But I know 23 is perfectly accurate. We've got about a $300,000 debt service charge each year. It's actually $297,000 for 2023. And for paying for chemicals and electricity and operators and repairs and all the other stuff that we have to do to keep wastewater going downhill and treated and out the door in compliance with standards, it costs about $913,000 this year. Add those two together, you got a expenditure of 1.23, and we believe, Christine and I just looking forward, that you're gonna have to grab about $70,000 out of that wastewater fund for Pawling Joint to balance out so there's enough money to pay for all this. 24 and 25, I added a 6% increase to the 23 budget. I think that's reasonable in today's day and age, and that's how the numbers work out. The debt service is, for the plant improvements, the $300,000 is fixed. The $50,000 in 25, additional in 25, represents a contingency, an unknown. We know we have a lot of I&I problems, particularly in the town water district number 1 and the reservoir road area. We were, in the one decent storm that we got this year, we were bombed from water from that side of town. And we're gonna spend some money this year looking more carefully at that side of town to figure out where it's coming from and what we can do to decrease that significant flow. So you can think of that 50,000 capital a couple of years out as maybe paying for some improvements in the collection system. But what's a negative 70 this year, under any reasonable projection, becomes a much bigger negative in years after. Let me do a sidebar here because I think it's important. Part of the discussion last night at the town board was What do you mean the rates are going up? We're gonna add a whole bunch of new service, people who require service in sewer district number 4. Rates should go down. Absolutely, once sewer district number 4 is here. I can't budget for something that doesn't exist. So when it comes in, all boats float higher and all boats sink with the tide. If there is significant increase in flow, the O&M component will go down if this board decides to lower the rates, and if the town and village agree with that. If those users pay the service fees that I heard talked about last night, then the service component will go down, but a little bit for everybody. Another way to think about this, and this commission adopted a policy almost 5 years ago now, that new users would not have to pay the existing users, that includes the town residents, back for the capital for the last 5 years of a brand new wastewater plant. They're welcoming more customers, want to treat new customers as equals with the old customers. So there won't be a separate, oh, pay me back for the 5 years of payments I've made. You're coming in as equals. And the rates I'm projecting today should go down if and when sewer district number 4 comes to fruition.
Dan, what is
Yep.
the current fund balance as of
$80,000 or 80, we looked at it.
8,000.
88,000.
And so you have an amount of fund balance allocation that's larger than the current fund balance? That
No, I need 70 of that 88 to make the
Right,
point.
but for next year.
Something's we need new rates.
Okay.
You're
So
proving
these-
my point.
Well, I'm not, I never do, but this reflects your, this reflects your current state with the current rates. So what you're saying is the fund balance would be left with 18,000 at the end of 2023.
Best projection, yes.
And with the rate increase of roughly 6% in 2024, you have a deficit of $72,000 minimum based on this because you need 90.
It's a 6% increase in operating costs.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right.
And if you did nothing with the
If you
rates.
did nothing.
That's where it would be.
understood.
Thank you. Okay, so rates generally in New York State have 2 components. One, operation, and another fixed cost. And that's because you got fixed costs, whether you have a drop of wastewater or whether you got 1,000 drops of wastewater. Properties, people go to Florida in the winter, but they still have the benefit of a wastewater collection system and service system, even if they aren't providing wastewater to it. So we look at setting up a rate structure that generates a certain amount of money to pay those fixed costs. You know, the operators have to be here, whether there's a lot of water or a little water. We have to send bills out, we have staff, we have things that aren't directly related to flow. Other things are. Electricity is very directly related to flow, and it's a big component of the cost of the wastewater treatment here in Pawling. Chemicals, getting rid of solid waste. We have the primer on wastewater. Wastewater is dirty water that has dissolved nutrients and solid nutrients, and when we put it out the back door to the environment, it is very clean. There are essentially no solid nutrients, and there is a tiny amount of dissolved nutrients. All of those nutrients that came to the plant to be treated became solids. We grew bugs, we grew organisms. Then we took the organisms out of the water, we dried them out in a process called a belt filter press, and we send them off either for incineration or landfilling. And that's a big component of the cost of operation today, solid waste management. And believe me, this staff, Justin and Christine, are hammering each other to get the water content of that solids as low as possible to minimize the expense of that disposal. We talk about it every week. So we are proposing a two-component rate structure. One that's tied directly to operations. How much water did you buy on the water side relative to other customers? And how much wastewater goes to the plant? And we set up a rate structure where people will pay for the amount of water that they send to us based on a meter read, amount of wastewater they send to us based on a meter reading on the water side. You're gonna see when I get to the rate section, accurate water meters are very important to us. We have to, if we're gonna use that as a basis of collecting money, we have to be fair and equitable between users. So that if we're getting a low meter reading from customer A because their meter's old or broken or something, that's unfair to customer B through Z. So when we find faulty meters, we demand that they fix it, and you'll see in the rate structure, there'll be a penalty if they don't. I mean, if they don't. I said part of this previously. Municipal Solutions has been working with us. We've come up with a two-component system, O&M on a cost per thousand basis, and fixed charges in what we are calling a service fee, unrelated to flow. And you add up those two components, and that's what the customer gets charged. Bills go out quarterly here on a calendar year that's different from the calendar year, just to make things.
Yeah.
So this is a comparison, and I again apologize for the clarity. The left-hand side is what you do now. From an operations standpoint, you take all those water meter readings, add them up, and you have a pro rata share of the O&M component of the budget. That's what you pay. In the current system, it's called a capital charge. Phase 1, phase 2 capital charge. I prefer to call it a service charge because it's not just capital. In the current system, everybody pays $68 a quarter for wastewater capital. So you take every user, the biggest users and the littlest users, and you multiply that number times 68 because that's the bill that you're going to send to them. That generates about, and I should know the percentage, I don't, but it's much less than the total amount needed to pay debt. So then you subtract that integration of 68 times the number of customers times the total debt needed in that quarter, and that becomes what we call the phase 2 debt. And the phase 2 debt is collected from only those customers who would pay more than $68 a quarter using this formula. So you have to go through the calculation, charge everybody 68, figure out how much capital or dollars that brought in, subtract that from the capital need, figure out the cutoff between, because that moves every quarter. It's not a fixed, you're a phase 1 based on your use and some other stuff, and so it moves. And then those phase 2 customers are responsible for paying all of that capital not paid by the $68. And it's challenging. It was challenging to program it. It's challenging to operate it. It's challenging to keep it up to date because it also requires that we know and believe that the assessments of every property in the service area is done the same, fairly, and equitably. Because this existing system uses assessment as a component of making that calculation. It is cumbersome at best. And you could argue that it may not be the most accurate system as you crank these numbers out, because I know the fundamental data aren't perfect. Assessments people haven't been reassessed in a timely fashion. So again, we're proposing on the right-hand side a system where, oh, one other comment. How much will people pay versus how much are they paying now? That's not an easy answer because of that calculation. In the new system, it's pretty easy. How much water are you sending to the system? For the first group, it's $15 a thousand, fixed until this commission changes it, and it could go down if enough new users come in. And that is for every gallon used up to 500,000. Everybody pays the same amount. Under this proposed system, between 500,000 and $1 million, people would not pay 15, but they'd pay around, I'm having trouble reading it too, $10 per thousand. And then the lowest rate for any use above $1 million, it would be $7.50. So everybody can say, geez, if I can read my water meter, I can now calculate what my wastewater O&M component will be, because it's going to be a number, simply derived number.
Hey, Mr. Stone, how many users are above that 1 million gallon range currently?
To my knowledge, only one.
Only one? How about the next scale down to 500 to 1 million?
It's definitely one.
Okay, yeah, right, sure.
and I think it would be an unusual year where you'd have more than one.
Okay, so everyone's in that
In the first group.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we're suggesting a service charge, and our suggestion is that service charge for the smallest users be fixed at $50 a quarter or $200 a year, and it goes up from there to as much as $6,000 a quarter for some of the biggest users. So. And you'll see that in the rate schedule, that range, and I'll describe a little bit later how we applied it. So we did a comparison at several points within the system of the old versus the new. And for the smallest users, they're currently paying about $128 a quarter. Under the proposed system, that number will become $138 a quarter. So $40 a year, $10 a quarter increase. For another look point, it would become a jump from about about $188 a quarter to about $240 a quarter, or $52 per quarter change, roughly $200 a year increase. For the biggest users, it's going to be slightly more painful. You can think of the current system as the littlest guys to some extent were subsidizing the biggest guys, because a bigger component was coming out of that fixed part of the bill. We think this normalizes it. Every math equation can be looked at. Maybe there's a way to tweak it to make it a little different. We think it's fair. We think it better normalizes it. We think this is a really good proposal. But everything's subject to being looked at.
I have another question, Mr.
Yes.
Stone. So I understand in theory about the larger users obviously paying their fair share compared to the smaller users, right? But what happens to, like, a large user to me would be the Dutcher house across the street, right? That's a large user.
Mm-hmm.
If we pass this increase onto them because they're a large user as a whole, isn't that building owner just gonna pass that rate on now to really small users, to studio apartments and one-bedroom apartments there, so in theory, the idea of making the large user pay more, we're actually making the smallest user pay more because that bill's gonna be passed on to them.
So an apartment like that is a half a benefit, or not benefit unit, but a half we were looking at apartments as we integrated it as half of a house.
Sure.
So, because, you know, there's always a bathroom, there's always a kitchen, whether it's a one-person or two-person, there is some base flow. And that's what our system did now. But if there's a better way to do it, we can tweak those things. I think looking at an apartment as about half of what a house is not a bad place to start.
Okay.
Vacant land, for example, under this system is roughly a third of a house. And I'm not saying this is an equivalent dwelling unit system, but that kind of thought process went into the assignment, the creation of the service charge and the assignments. Christine and one of my staff have spent hours and hours going through the database. You know, people are gonna be billed on this to make it accurate. And so if the fundamental data are not good, there's inequities in the collection of money. So we believe that the database is strong now. We believe we have a good programming company to make this work. And, you know, within the boundary condition, the error bars of this whole kind of system, we think this is right in the middle of fair and equity.
Dan, just so I understand this, so homes passed that are, or I'm sorry, properties passed that are vacant, as well as properties that are outside the system but within the boundaries of the village will convert from the $68 to the, whatever, I can't read that number, it's too small.
I'm sorry,
They'll
but-
all convert.
Let me just interrupt you a
Yeah.
little bit here. The rates will only apply to properties that have sewers available to them. So there are parts of the village where there are no sewers. The people in that part of the village will pay nothing. The people where sewer goes across and for whatever reason they're not hooked up because it's vacant,
Sure.
they need to pay the service charge because they have their property's benefited from this,
Right.
and they will pay that.
Okay. Yep.
So, this one's even worse. You're gonna have to look at this on the website, but this is the way we thought of the various users. On the left-hand side, it talks about vacant land and various apartment-sized buildings, commercial, small commercial, large commercial, schools, and I can't read anything from here. And it provides both the quarterly charge of that service charge, and then on the right-hand side, it annualizes it so everybody can see it. The three lines at the bottom say O&M, dollars per gallons used, $15 a thousand for the first 500,000 gallons, $10 a thousand for 500,000 1 gallon to $1 million, and then $1 million and 1 gallon to and above. So those are the numbers. Currently, there are a few people who have refused Pawling Joint Sewer Commission to upgrade their meters. And therefore, in our view, more than a few. Okay. In our view, that's eminently unfair to everybody else. You know, you're telling me that guess at what I use and bill me accordingly. And so we're gonna disincentivize that kind of behavior by saying the minimum bill for somebody who refuses us after 2 notices to come in and fix their meter, we'll calculate the bill based on the minimum flow, and you'll get a service charge based on the service charge assigned to you, and then we're gonna multiply that by 2.5, 2.5, so that you will at least pay as much as others that are doing the right and fair thing. And that is new and different. That is not in the existing calculations at all. So, I've been at this a while, as I've said. We started more actively talking about this winter, and we're continuing here into the early part of spring. We've drafted, and the chairman is considering a letter to be sent to the supervisor and the mayor, formally notifying them of what we're doing and asking them to work with their own council to take whatever steps they need to do and return to, and give us the process so we can integrate, well, the town board has to act before the village board has to act, and so that we can put that all into a schedule, so that if we all work together, the goal would be to have the process buttoned down by sometime in June, the programming done late July, the programming tested and retested in August, and if we're all happy with the way the program works, we would use the new program with the new rates in September. And that concludes my diatribe.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, for discussion, we've been discussing getting a maintenance agreement for our generators. So reference 27.23, HA Shrek, 10 generators, annual maintenance of $4,982.50. That's open for discussion.
Is this the same company we've been using?
No,
No?
no. We were using peak power.
We haven't received any other estimates from him, or?
No, they were way above this last year. And
Previously.
then we did get an estimate from American Metal Heavy Equipment, which it's all in your packet if you want the 3 different proposals. To me, when I looked at it, but everyone should look at it, we also had another one from Owen Downey. I think that the one from Shrek is more straightforward. It's easy to understand what they're charging for. The other ones are a little iffy, as far as I'm concerned.
And Rich Kane from H2O had assisted with this, correct?
Yes. And I think he had one other company that he was waiting to hear back from.
So he's still waiting for one.
Yes.
So do we want to hold off until that one's received before we make a decision on this?
We have a couple in here now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I'd be curious, Christina, their references are pretty good as far as handling it. I mean, 10 generators is a pretty big workload, right?
From Shrek?
Yeah.
They're pretty well known outfit,
Yeah.
right?
I've dealt with Shrek for 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'd be okay moving forward with this then, if the rest of the commission is.
I'm okay with it as well. We can always look at it after a year or two, and,
Okay.
yeah, always
All right.
keep the option open.
Okay. Then can I entertain a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Before we go into current projects, I just wanted to update everyone, and Justin, help me out if I miss anything here. So last week, we had a sewer backup on Memorial Avenue, and we had Savarese come out and jet the line and got it clear, moving again. The problem that we're finding is a huge amount of grease. So we thought we were good until I got I got a call from actually Dan Peters Easter Sunday. with it backed up again, I had to call Justin, and we called Sabrice out, jetted the line again, and huge amounts of grease, and they're like boulders coming out.
It's not a healthy diet.
No. So, we just, for the village, we just implemented a whole new program and annual inspection program through the building department, fire prevention, all sorts of stuff that we're slowly implementing. We just passed it all in January. So certainly now grease traps have risen to the top. So I'll be having a building department meeting on Tuesday, and we're gonna have to seriously address this. They're not being checked, they're not being cleaned, and I think in some situations they may not have big enough containment to, you know, so we're gonna have to address this because it's a problem. So I just wanted to update everyone on that scenario, and let's hope that we're good for now, so.
Thank you, Commissioner.
So James or Dan, Castagna?
Castagna's under construction, they're moving forward, right, they're full steam ahead, the project's moving along pretty well. I think it's, Dan, is it I think they're expecting completion next year sometime?
Yeah.
Right, that's what I know they were in touch with the school, just to let them know as well, because the school had to make different arrangements in their budget moving forward to anticipate, you know, potential kids coming in, but they said it'll be next year. ASPCA is on here also, that's also in our building department, just waiting for their permit.
But they still haven't cleared health.
They still haven't cleared health.
No.
Yeah, all their
I
stuff
got
is
it.
in our office now. So,
Okay.
once we get it, so we can't issue until
Yeah.
that comes through. Other than that, like our building inspector's already reviewed their plans, and he's done all the legwork on our end, so when that stuff comes through, he'll be able to issue that permit. And from my understanding, they wanna go right to work, so
Good.
that'd be a good user.
Yes.
Great, thank you. West Main
Yes.
Street pump station?
Jeff and Justin and I looked at the panel today. No one's quite sure where this panel came from, but it was here, and it was decided about 2 years ago now that it would be integrated into West Main Street. When it was plugged in, it didn't fully work. One of the two VFDs is shot. The other one doesn't seem to take input because it may not be programmed properly. The electrical contractor who installed them is willing to go back to the manufacturer and try to figure it out to make that work. We're requesting a proposal from him to take that responsibility and get it operating the way it's supposed to with all the alarms and controls. Right now, it's operating strictly off floats, and there's one float that operates a pump. If the water level gets too high, the second float comes on, and it works for now, but it's not optimal. So we need to talk to the contractor and ask them for the proposal.
Okay, thank you. All right, attorney report? Nothing? Okay, thank you. Dan, engineers report?
Just that we, again, Jeff and Justin and I looked at the sewer district #1 area and the Pawling area for the placement of flow meters. We've come to an understanding of what we're gonna do for this season, and within a week or so, I expect those meters to be in and operating, and we'll be able to see where
Just
flows
the-
come from.
Yeah, can you just elaborate for others that might not know that that's to detect the I&I issue that we're having?
Yeah, so we had one significant rain event this winter, and we got blown away from an increase in flow east of 22. It represented, it's a small part of the system, and it represented 60% of the increased flow. We've known that, but we don't know where it is. So, and Trinity Pawling owns their own sewers. So the meters that I just spoke about will clearly segregate the flow from Trinity Pawling from the flow from the public part of the sewer. So we can, so if there is a problem on Trinity Pawling, we can ask them to expend some of their resources to fix it. If the problem's on our side, we'll have to fix it. Between Lori and Justin, they track down rural water who will, for either a very low cost or no cost, televise the system. And that's scheduled for July and
July, end of July and beginning of August, we have 2 different days.
So we, you know, if they don't need a lot of jetting, we'll get most of the system televised. And that will give us a good indication between that and the metering of where we gotta go to do some fixes.
Is this, Dan, you think during rain events, people that have maybe their sump pumps and things like that going into the sewer? Right, that's why it's during a rain event, this is what's happening?
We know some of that occurs over here, and we're doing building inspections to remove that. We haven't yet smoke tested and looked for roof leaders and things, but.
Yeah, and roof leaders, right, because it collects the water quickly and it discharges
Boom,
right to the
it's
system,
quick.
and then your numbers go up.
Yeah. And so, and you can see from the hydrograph that first, if it's an instant first flow,
Yes.
it's roof or.
It's roof work, because it's collected quickly and put right into the system.
If it's got legs, then it could be some pumps.
Groundwater, yeah, sure.
So we made hydrographs last year. I think the network that we're gonna put in place will tell us a lot more about where to look. And then we'll come to the commission and say, look, here's a capital program, because.
You think the commission should consider maybe sending a letter out to that district, that area, and say, hey, we're seeing large spikes in storms. Predominantly this
spike isn't
is.
just some pumps. This is.
Right, but maybe a letter out to people saying, you shouldn't be putting
Doesn't
your
hurt.
roof drains and sump pumps into the system. We have data showing that this isn't going on somewhere, we're gonna look for it. We recommend, disconnecting that.
Yeah.
Maybe a letter to that district. I mean, we know it's coming from a certain area, right?
You want to do that before they do
Well, I just think
metering?
maybe it could make a difference, right? And potentially, and there's a lot of people, if you get folks from the city who are used to putting their drains and things into the sewer, it's normal to them, right? Now they're relocating to Pawling, they might not even realize you're doing something wrong, because it's normal to put your water into there. But they don't realize that it's running the cost of the whole district up, though,
I have
because you're treating clean water now.
I have a slightly cynical thought on that.
Sure.
A homeowner given a choice with their basement flooding or pumping it somewhere?
No, I
they're
mean,
gonna pump it somewhere.
I mean pumping outside though, don't pump it into the sewer, but a lot of folks put these drains in their basement, right?
Yeah.
And they tie it, I'm a contractor by trade, I can tell you how houses I went into, I say, you're dumping that into your septic, so your sewer you're paying for, but even in a private septic, I'm like,
You don't
you're
want
destroying
it.
your private septic.
You don't want
You
it.
don't want extra water going in there, but some folks don't even realize
Yeah.
that they're doing it.
I don't, hey, getting information out there is never a bad idea.
Yeah.
Maybe talking about it at every commission meeting is not a bad idea.
Sure.
So, I can draft a letter, and that's.
Yeah, I mean, we can still move forward and schedule what has to happen, but maybe alert people to,
Yeah.
hey, if you're doing this, you shouldn't be actually, and you're actually costing yourself money because you're operating a sewer plant to treat clean water.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Justin, you have anything for
Besides the
today?
main backups, it's really all that's been going on.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, can I get a motion to go in an executive session for litigation?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I want to say that.
Yeah, I want to recuse myself.
Do I need to stay to when you come out of executive session? Is it
You don't
okay?
have to, you can go to
Good. I will do that. Thank you.
Are you leaving at all tomorrow morning? Or?
Let's see, I gotta leave for the airport about 8 o'clock.
So I'll say safe travels.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Take care.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. That was great. You should be a professor. Have you taught classes?
Yes. Yes, I've taught classes.
Well, you do a great job.
What was your pass-fail rate?
People had to do the work.
So you taught engineering?
Still miss her.
No, not at that level. I helped teach operators on the water side.
Yeah.
I was part of the group that would put on, teach them what you did in drinking water and how you treated it and what the regulations were and all that kind of stuff. And I like to talk, so it
Well,
comes easy.
You do it well. We're lucky,
Well,
lucky
thank
to
you.
have you explaining it.
Thank you.
Okay, how are you? Hi.
Hey, Dan, could we get this presentation over to LaBerge, because they don't have it? Because they put together our whole district based upon ethnic race, but they didn't have any of this.
Yeah, yes, I would be happy to get.
This way we can get around it, because
Yeah.
the problem with us now is that this is a result of then like almost 80,000 in increases through the district, that's fairly small.
And I don't, it's 80,000 for the whole district?
District, yeah, the southern district.
So there must be minimum 26 users, so it's 3,000 a year?
Yeah, there's a few more than that, but yeah, it's minor. But it's a big hit for this. I mean, the problem is from what we were told from our attorneys and engineers, it's so high that we have to redo our whole hearing now.
I think they're calling me
I'll
up.
get to go up there.
Dan Selmy? Yes.
And then empty lots also.
Sure. No problem, I'll be here. I'll be here. Thanks. Bye.
Questions, when we come back.
Yeah, of course. Dan, the commissioner says you can't leave.
No, I can't. That's exactly what they said. Were you able to hear that? Hey. You can't leave.
Dan, to the current sewer district is coterminous with the village boundary.
The sewer district is, that's
So the
true.
current, don't current residents within the sewer district all pay the $68?
No, because you are absolutely right, it is coterminous. We did that about 4 or 5 years ago, I forget. I had the intent of charging everybody.
Yeah.
I got nailed on that. They said, no, if the sewer's in front, yes, it's fair to charge people, but it's not fair to charge if the
They don't
sewer's
have
not in
access.
front. However, there's only these guys only said 5 years, we're gonna waive any back charge for capital. So if a sewer was extended after that period, I would expect somebody has some makeup capital to go.
Well, there are a few houses that are not, that will never get passed by the sewer. I happen to
Yeah.
have one.
No.
I'd pay the $68,
Yeah, I'm thinking, the original uncharged farmhouse is gonna be a long time before sewers get over there.
yeah, I mean, I'm way up
Yeah,
past, Tabor Knolls.
but there's a sewer in front of your house?
No, there's nothing in front of my house. I'm the last house in the village.
Then you shouldn't be paying the 68.
I know.
You are?
I gotta double check that. I doubt I
I
am.
don't, I mean.
I'd be surprised.
There could be mistakes, but
No, I don't think I am. I'd be very surprised.
Yeah.
That whole street is, that's never gonna get sewers, because it's just,
Yeah.
it's 5 houses, and it's not,
And it's-
there's not enough flow, and it's straight up,
Yeah.
We have cesspools up there,
Oh.
that's right. So when you did the back test,
Did the which test?
the back test for the
Right.
new rates,
Yes.
because you didn't show that on the slide, how much, does that allow you to reconstitute the fund balance to some degree? Because, that's a scary, essentially what you've got is you've got a fund balance that's depleted from, let's call it 88 to 17,
Yep.
right? So that's 70,000, that's essentially, we'll call it 81% of the fund balance is
Yeah.
depleted in 1 year,
Yeah.
right?
Um,
And
I-
then if you don't have the new rate structure, or if the rate structure gets modified, then technically, if you're doing the same debt service, or if there's any modification,
The
you're.
debt service is pretty fixed, because it's a 30-year.
So my point is that well, there's 2 questions. So, one, since you've just got that one user, or let's say you might have 2 users at some point who are in the highest flow, right?
I-
When you back tested, where did the fund balance come out?
I, we're,
Roughly.
no, we're roughly 30 to 40,000 per year positive, by my spreadsheet. Now, the last time I ran that was before Christine and my staff combed through the entire database, so I had assumptions of what it was. I haven't run it since but I think we will be positive a little bit. And I'm pretty sure the rate side will be positive a little more than the debt side, so.
Okay.
So we'll, and another thing I didn't say to the town, this, it's a multi-variable, because as the base grows, yes, the rates will go down, but if the flow that Ron used on sewer district number 4 was design flow, then we're not gonna get nearly the amount of flow that people think they're gonna send. Design flow in New York State, a good example, design flow in New York State for Castagna would have been greater than 15,000 gallons a day.
So I guess my
They're
one
doing
question
5.
for you, here's the one
What would it be
question.
now at the end with the other 80 units going on there, the flow, you think?
It'll double the-
10,000?
it should go to about 10. Yeah.
Dan, shouldn't the cliff, rather than be an arbitrary number, shouldn't the cliff be set closer to what you would predict the flows to be for the largest customers out of District 4 versus just saying 500,000 or a million?
District 4 is not in this number.
I know, but when you do your new rates, shouldn't cliff, right, so you've got a price break at half a million,
Right.
shouldn't
Needs
it
more
be
red meat than-
where the District 4 large users are, so that you can nudge.
So so that'll be a benefit.
Right,
Yeah,
that's what you should do.
yeah, but I gotta have it a little higher than that, because
Right.
I don't know when or if 4 will occur.
Or open.
So it's gotta be sustainable the way it is.
Right.
And when 4 happens, everybody gets
Mhm.
help. I mean, that's the thinking.
Excuse me. All right,
Sorry.
that's okay. All right, so no decisions or voting took place in executive session. Can I entertain a motion to close executive session and go back into regular meeting?
So moved. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And now can I have a motion to close regular meeting and go into visitor comment?
I'll make the motion.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any visitor comments?
I would just make the comment that Dan and I were just talking about, which is that ultimately you're in a catch-22, because as I understand it, and correct me if this is wrong, you're setting the cliff and the pricing based on the number that you've chosen, which we'll call 500,000, and the price band only has in it 1 to maybe 2 users under the current 3 districts. And as I also understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, and it may be wrong, the town is currently burdened with having to pass through a sewer district that, according to them, now has a rate structure that might not work within the band that they had already predicted when they started their work. And so my comment was what we just said, which is ultimately you can predict that you could benefit more to the entire system by changing the cliffs so that they match up more with the flows coming from the District 4 users, and that would be much more advantageous than I'm not gonna call the number arbitrary, but we'll say arbitrary number. So the question is, how do you close that process problem? And is there a way, since you only have 1 user, that you can go back to the town and say, what is the upper limit of your band? And then for now, adjust that number to the 500, since in the 500 to 1 million, you only have 1 customer, and that customer is the same as the 1 million. And by doing that, you would allow the town to continue their work without elongating their process, without burdening what you back tested as your future revenue. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, and the part of that loop that I'm least familiar with is, I don't know what assumptions LaVerge used in generating the number that you generated.
Right.
And an expectation, all I've heard is, when I calculated it on the current system, and that's a hard calculation.
Right.
Because there's assessments, and who knows what the assessments are. Compared to what I think this says, it's 70,000 delta.
Right.
But it's 25 to 30 big users, so it's $3,000 a year. And you
District
think-
4 users or District?
District 4 users.
Right.
So if $3,000 a year for the kind of users that are down there that are sandwiched in with nowhere to go, and the upside on the land value, to me, that doesn't sound like a lot
It
of
is,
change.
but if you took one more loop with LaBerge.
I might
you
be able to
to
convince him his
find-
number's too high.
Right, because you might,
Or-
or you
or-
might find that there's no difference in your back test if you were to lower, let's say, your number to 420,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And then that would allow the town to continue with
Without
the
having to
work,
go through
without
the-
having to
yeah.
go through the cycle. So
With
might I just-
permission, I'll call
yeah.
Ron.
Yeah, I think
just-
that would be a great
okay.
idea for both engineers to
Yeah,
talk to each
okay.
other.
I just think
Thank
that
you.
might,
Yeah.
just in case you thought I wasn't paying attention.
Anybody else? Phil?
It was
Yeah.
only the first 5 minutes.
On your discussion before about the grease traps, when I was a building inspector back in the early 2000s, myself and Joe Burden used to go around and inspect those grease traps regularly. And the ones that we always had troubles with, we would do even more inspections on. And once the owners got to realize that, they were keeping them cleaner.
Yeah.
So unless you
So we're gonna have to work on
really
that pretty
have
hard.
a good
Yes.
system and keep on top of them,
Yep,
they just abuse it.
yeah,
And it ends up costing you a lot of money in the long run.
yes.
And just the second thought on the sewer District 4 and our current map plan report and everything, that we're getting advice legally that with the rates that, the way Ron understands them and everybody understands them, would increase the map plan and report speculation so much that the Attorney General may not approve it, and we may have to start the process all over again once these new rates are understood, once that,
That's what we were just.
What we were
right,
just
no,
talking about
I
is
understand
that
that, but I'm just saying,
Ron
right now,
made-
the way it sits.
Yeah, but Ron did a calculation, whatever he thought the burden was gonna be under the existing system, he came up with a number. And then he came up with another number of what the rates that I showed you tonight. There may be $50,000 error bars on those numbers, so they may actually overlap. And if they overlap, then the map plan and report should not have.
Well, I'm just saying, the way it's understood now,
Yeah,
the way it's, I'm
Well,
hoping
that's
it,
why
But what
the
I'm
two
saying-
engineers will talk
Yeah.
and
Well,
work that
that's what I'm
out.
hoping,
And
they'll
let's hope
straighten it
that
out.
it doesn't get to that, yes.
so we don't have to start this process over.
Right.
Been working on this for over 2 years.
Yep,
And it gets frustrating in
right.
this form.
It's hard to do business in the Empire of New York, that's all I can say.
Oh, we don't know that.
Anybody else? All right, well, thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, we never know how